Hello, 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 CJ. Nice.
Hey, Karen. Hey, Melanie under
I'm
Karen's
just changing
Zoom.
my name.
Yeah.
Just figuring that out.
Yeah, no problem. I can hear your Canadian accent already, Melanie.
Oh, sorry.
We can talk about it tomorrow.
Tomorrow. My name.
Yay. So all of our speakers are pinned. If you want to be able to see everybody who's here, go up into your right-hand corner with the view and select gallery view, and that will let you see everybody who is here. Or if you prefer to just stare at the beautiful and talented faces of our panelists, that is also just fine. And quick, Hanana, look extra beautiful.
I'm going to mute everybody. So if Allison, you could unmute yourself, and then we will unmute the panelists when we bring them up. But just because we had some extra noises coming in, and we have a lot of people jumping in quickly here.
Fantastic. So glad to have you guys. So nice to see what everybody is writing. If you are just arriving, please feel free to drop into the chat what you are writing and where you are calling in from. If you cannot see the chat, go down to the chat bubble in the bottom center of your Zoom screen and click that button, and the chat should appear on your right-hand side. Feel free to talk in the chat throughout the entire presentation, and that's also a great place to drop questions. Let me also go ahead and hit the live transcript button. Live transcription, enable. So you should now be able to see the live transcription at the bottom of the screen. If you find that distracting and you don't want to see it, go to the three dots that say more in the lower right-hand side and click hide subtitle. Or if you don't see the subtitles and you would like to, go to the three dots that say more in your bottom right and click show subtitle, and that will give you our subtitles as well. Welcome, everybody. We are so glad you're here. We're going to start in just 1 minute. As you jump in, please feel free to type into the chat where you're coming in from and what you are working on. We are so psyched to have you and our amazing panel. I'm like so pleased they all said yes. It's kind of amazing.
I know. And Allison finds the panels for our meetings. And when I saw the panel, I'm like, thank you for this incredible group and all these different agent stories. I'm really excited to hear. I think I'm like the runaway bride writer edition, because I broke up with my agent, and whenever I have talks with other agents, I get cold feet. So hearing great stories about people who find agents who work with them so well, it's going to be exciting and probably healing for me.
I am especially excited about Melanie's story because Melanie had an agent help her find another agent who got her to a third agent, which I think is really kind of nifty, and which really I think kind of puts the lie to the whole like agents are hideous gatekeepers who hate all of us. I don't know if anybody follows the Brevity blog here, but this morning I also posted about how agents can actually get through 600 queries in a week. How fast and easily they are able to read and respond based on depth of knowledge. And I wrote that because I was in a Facebook group where somebody read a tweet from an agent who said, I got 600 queries and I've gotten through 200 of them. And the writer was very kind of huffy about it and very like, well, I bet most queries don't even get read. There's no way they can go through them like that. And it's like, what I'm really good at is auditioning street performers, and I can tell in 5 seconds if they're not for me. So I recommend that. And I also recommend use that technique of stuff people say in public groups that you believe is wrong, and write your blogs out of that, write your captions out of that, start your tweet threads out of that. Because if somebody's wrought up about it, chances are real good that other people are wrought up about it too. And so you will automatically be starting to write something that is already interesting, that people already want to know about. Look for the complaints. All right. Ashleigh, shall we dive in? You've got recording going?
I do. Let's dive in. We are talking all things agents today. And we are so excited. Allison, could you tell everyone about our panelists?
Sure. So signing with a literary agent is often a long path, but it is not always the same path. We have with us today, and we'll give their full introductions a little bit later, Hanana Zahir, who published in literary journals and won some pretty prestigious awards before she connected with her literary agent. Melanie Gall, who cold queried to get her first agent, then got her second agent with help from a third agent. And Lola Akinmade Ekerstrom. Am I saying it correctly, Lola?
It's Orchestrum.
Orchestrom. Akinmade Orchestrom.
Yes.
All right, doing my best. And I'm going to go with Lola after this.
Yes, yes.
Lola worked with a writing coach, tried the whole Twitter pitch thing, ended up meeting an agent who was on tour with another writer. Nothing like the personal touch. Before we dive into our incredible, incredible panels, Ashleigh, we are also doing a thing called the Express Lane. And if you come out of the Writer's Bridge full of enthusiasm, but unsure of what step to actually take, we are currently doing some really fun stuff in the Express Lane, which is our paid membership program. Our Friday emails right now are a 6-part series on pitching to commercial media. And this week we're talking about 5 easy places to find editors and magazines who want your work. Ashleigh, what have you been doing on your Monday emails?
We've been doing a mix, lots of things about videos and questions to ask to start real conversations. The functionality of Reels is changing. So I'm going to do some updated lessons on tutorials on how to batch Reels quickly, how to add your own custom elements like your own GIFs, stickers, little things that when you understand the technology behind it, it's something that can set your content apart and make it more fun to make. And everybody, we are 20 some now lessons into the Express Lane. So if you dive in now, you can start, you don't have to start in the middle. You can go back and catch up, which is like getting 15 or 16 lessons free.
Yep, it's all at the Express Lane Hub. And if you want to ride with us in the Express Lane room, I was just feeling extra cheesy today. Sorry about that. Check it out at thewritersbridge.com/express lane. Before we introduce the panel, we have the question of the week. Joanne asks, how do you keep your energy for marketing going after your book has launched? Ashleigh, you are the most energetic marketer I know. How do you do it?
I do it because all of my marketing is centered around having real conversations. And when you're having real conversations, it's a two-way street and people are telling you how they feel, what they think, and what they want next. So your job as a discerning writer, creator, business owner is to decide how much output do you want to have on a daily or weekly basis. But there's no shortage of affirmations coming in from other people and encouragement when you make your connections really about human to human interactions rather than just what press or you get or where your numbers are for your Amazon ranking.
And on a purely strategic, keep your spirits up level, I would suggest forming a group with other writers who are launching at about the same time. Check in with each other on a group call once a month, just to, trade strategies, keep your spirits up, and give each other a boost. We're going to introduce our panel as we ask them questions. So Hanana Zahir is the author of Lovebirds, which came out from Bull City Press in 2021. Other recent writing has appeared in the Kenyon Review, Best Small Fictions 2021, Waxwing, Agni, Pithead Chapel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. She's been published incredibly widely and in a lot of literary places. She serves as a fiction editor for the Los Angeles Review, and she's the senior editor for SAAG, a dissident literary anthology. Hanana, you write beautiful literary short stories. They have dead birds and weird parent-child relationships and really surreal, interesting things happening in them. It is a real challenge to find an agent for beautiful literary short stories. Can you tell us your agent journey?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me and having me here. So the agent journey, I had an agent when I was very young, right out of my MFA. And that was a very beautiful thing and also a very scary thing because I was literally taken by my thesis advisor, handed to an agent, and I went, I have no clue what's happening. Sure, publish me, why not? And sure enough, it didn't publish because, it never happened so easily. But it did scare me about the whole agenting process. So I think over the next maybe 10, 12 years, I just kind of wrote fiction, tried to work on my craft, and ended up, literary magazine by literary magazine. I had literary magazine goals that I wanted to hit. So I started doing that. Then at some point, I think when I was publishing at a certain, I don't want to call it level because I feel like that ascribes sort of, too much legitimacy to the hierarchy, but in certain journals, then literary agents started reaching out, which was sort of an indication to me that maybe I'm now ready to go back out with my work and find somebody. And then in 2019, I had just moved to a new country. I knew no one. And so I was like, okay, what am I going to do with my time? So I finished my book and I was like, okay, let me just send some queries out and see how it goes. And then sure enough, it worked out well. To 2020, I signed with my current agent, who is amazing and awesome. With some help from the two of you, by the way. I know Ashleigh pulled tarot for me and Allison talked me down some ledges. So
Hanana, I forgot. Hanana and I had never met, and she posted in a Facebook writers group. I don't even know if you were asking for tarot, or I don't know why I offered, but then over Facebook Messenger, I did a card pull about agents.
Yeah.
And the takeaway for our whole audience there is whatever you care passionately and deeply about that you would like to share with other people, that is how you are going to bond with the writers who are going to help you on your journey just because they want to help you, whether they know you or not. So it's okay to be really passionate about your niche.
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to do a quick introduction of Melanie so she can tell us her story. So Melanie, you're on tour for your book right now, right? She's an internationally acclaimed performer and has sung at Lincoln Center and Royal Albert Hall. She's also written several plays featuring historic music and ingenue about Deanna Durbin and Judy Garland, and had a sold out off-Broadway run at Soho Playhouse and won Best Musical Award at the Adelaide Festival. Her forthcoming biography is Deanna Durbin, Judy Garland, and the Golden Age of Hollywood, out with Lions in July 2022. So Melanie, and you have a very different book coming up for your next title too. So would love to hear how you found your agents.
Okay, so like I said, I'm primarily a performer. What little girl doesn't want to write books? Like I was that girl who's like, I'm gonna write a book. And I had these on my shelf. This is my childhood bedroom. Yay. But on the shelf behind me, I have all these books that I wrote as in high school, and they're terrible. But the point is, just like most of us, I think I always wanted to be a writer, but then I figured if I write shows that I end up performing, that there's more money, basically also money. So I was touring these different shows, then 2020 hit, and I had been touring this show about Deanna Durbin and Judy Garland, and I base the shows I write basically about like weird niche things that I think are going to sell. So I was like, look, no one's ever written a biography of Deanna Durbin. There have been a few self-published books over the years, but like there is no actual biography. So I thought, hey, maybe this is a thing. And I had done all the research and I was stuck in this childhood bedroom for 2 years. So basically I cold pitched agents. I did get several offers on that. Picked my agent. It was down to 2 agents. And I was like, okay, who's the right agent for this book? One of them was the agent I wanted. She seemed like she'd be my best friend and she'd guide me through my career, etc. The other seemed more likely to sell the book. So I picked the one who seemed more likely to sell the book. I have a new agent now. Basically, she did sell the book. That's the thing. I can't say I made the wrong choice because she did exactly what I needed her to do. But then, so okay, the book sold. It came to the second book. Unlike Hanana, I want to write about live birds, not dead birds. So I have a pet sparrow who's here. And so I've written a book about sparrows, house sparrows, and people who keep them as pets. And like reasonably, the agent that I had for the Deanna Durbin biography did not want that book. Like I get it, but also it would have been nice if we had had a discussion about what future work and the things I might have written, but which we didn't, and that was on me. So anyway, she basically said, I'll release you if you can find another agent, which was real. I was terrified to have that conversation, and she was incredibly nice about it. So she released me. It was all good considering how legally binding her contract was. It was terrifying to actually bring this up. But so anyway, I started cold pitching other agents, and three of them in the end said, I'm not the right person for this book, but I know someone who is. And three of them recommended the same person. And I don't know how, but she had not been on my radar at all. But she is the primary agent for Bird Books. Again, that was on me. Should have done that research. So one of them actually, before even writing me back, he phoned her up, asked if she'd be interested, said, wrote me back, said she was expecting the manuscript. And, within 4 days, I had an offer from a bunch of agents, but her specifically. And I figured three people, and two of them go over to her house for dinner regularly. So, I mean, it turns out they're all friends. But yeah, so she's the one I picked. Again, I don't know. Again, is this the agent for long term? I don't know, but she is the agent for this book. So, and I'm a sparrow, and life is weird.
I love the message that Melanie has for us too, because Melanie has written not one, but two incredibly niche books that really dive deeply into her particular areas of expertise, the things she loves, the things she cares about. And those have been the things that she's able to sell because she is deeply sharing what she deeply cares about. Let us turn ourselves over to Lola Akinmade Åkerström, the author of the 2018 Lowell Thomas Award winner for Best Travel Book, Due North, and the best-selling Lagom, Swedish Secret of Living Well. Please correct my pronunciation on that when you come on, Lola. A noted photographer and travel writer. If you get a chance, you got to check out her website. Her photos are incredible. Her work has appeared in National Geographic, BBC, CNN, Travel and Leisure, Slate, Travel Channel, Lonely Planet. Basically, if they publish travel and they're classy, Lola has published there. Lola, you ended up being introduced to an agent who was on tour with their other author. What had you done before that happened so that your manuscript was ready to be snapped up by the agent that you met in person and resonated with?
Yes, no, absolutely. And what I'll do is I'll kind of go back a little bit, because before I got my agent, before I got my manuscript ready, I had written 2 books before. And at that time, I had no agent. And even though those 2 books did really well, the first one won an award, because I didn't have an agent, I wasn't able to promote it or get it to a publication, the right publishers. So I self-published. The second book, Lagom, the publisher came directly to me. That book was then published in 18 different languages, but because I didn't have an agent, I negotiated a really crap English language deal. Gratefully, I got 17 other languages, which came with really great deals. But that initial deal sucked because I didn't know what to do. It was just me, and it was a big 5 publisher. So when I was writing my third book, I said, you know what, I want to do it with an agent who knows the market better than I can, who can get this to the right editors. And so before I got the agent, I worked with an amazing writing mentor and coach and friend, Lee Schulman. Lee is fantastic. So working together with Lee, we got that manuscript to be ready for an agent, because when I'm somebody that likes to polish my work. I don't just put, just anything if it's not ready. So I needed to make sure that my manuscript was at least just as polished as it could be. And so before I got my agent, on Twitter, they have this Dave Pitt hashtag where you can, I think it's twice a year or 3 times a year on a certain date, you pitch exactly, that's the hashtag. So you pitch your story, in 250 characters or 240 characters. And then if agents are interested, they get in touch. So from DeepPit, I got about 7 agents. I sent them the first 50 pages. 3 of them were like, okay, this is not for me. The others kind of kept taking a while and never really got in touch. So I was like, okay, now I have this manuscript, but no agent. And so at that time, I was part of a mastermind, a group called the Femme League, which is kind of a group of ladies that push us to get to our next self, our kind of the better self. And so through that network was when I found out that my current agent, Jessica Craig, was visiting Stockholm on a book tour with one of our authors. And that author was a really big author. And so she had just 20 minutes to meet me in person. I didn't have my manuscript with me. And I said, you know what, I'm going to meet you. She said, I'm going to meet you. I've got 20 minutes. And in that 20 minutes, just the energy and the rapport and the chemistry was so great that even if she didn't accept my manuscript, we were still going to end up being friends. And that's one thing, the advice I give is if you can meet an agent to kind of just, even if it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes of coffee, it's really important to see if that chemistry is there. So she said, send me your first chapter. I want to see after that meeting. And she loved the first chapter. And the feedback she said was, this is an incredibly polished manuscript, which I told Lee, you know, my editor, who is, you know, who I just adore. And I said, that feedback is also for you, because we made sure together we polished this manuscript. And so that was kind of how I got the agent. And then the publication journey is a whole nother story. But what I'm going to do in the chat is I'm going to actually leave a YouTube video that my agent recorded about the publication journey of this book, because the book In Every Mirror is Black, because it's going to have an incredible journey. So that is kind of how I got my agent. I'm going to just put it in here. But I encourage you to watch this video. That's agent.
Wonderful. And we'll include that video link in the follow-up email tomorrow too. Yes. So that, you know, right at this time frame, that is a fantastic story. And yeah, thank you for putting that Jessica Craig, Lola's agent, in there. Amazing. So thank you for each one of our panelists. We're going to jump in with some questions that were asked in advance. And if other people have questions that they want to drop in the chat, put it in. Oh, and Stephanie just said the book was turned down by 70
Ashleigh,
publishers.
I think you have just gone on mute.
Huh. Am I?
Or possibly it's me.
Okay. Okay. Stephanie, you can hear me, right? Okay. All right. Question, and any of our panelists can jump in for this. Diana asks at a deeper level, how do you know when an agent is thirsting for our kind of book and is open to new clients? I know the basic info, but there are so many nuances. So often it's the intuitive and the serendipitous essence that gives us the perfect match. Any ideas on this realm or this approach?
I mean, you can often they tweet about what they want. That is one thing. I mean, if you follow them on Twitter, they'll often specifically say, like, at this moment. I mean, their web pages aren't always updated, but Twitter is a really good way to see, like, what are they looking for now?
I agree. Nana?
I was going to say there's another, I mean, so one of the things that I did, and this was even before I was thinking of agents, I would pay attention to the kind of books that I liked to read. So before their wish list, I had my own wish list of the agencies that I wanted to be with, because I think one of the things that's been very interesting for me to see is how stressed out everybody is out there, like thinking about agents. And it kind of pissed me off a little bit, because I was, you know, as I was doing the thing and I was taking on this stress and I was going, I don't want to feel like this stress. I want to feel like I'm looking for somebody to sell my work, not I'm begging somebody to sort of take me on. So I started making my own wish list depending on writers that I like. So for example, my agent also represents Samantha Irby, who's a great essayist, or Carmen Machado, who's a great short story writer. So he had already been sort of in the back of my mind. So I would kind of say, if you read something amazing, look at the back pages to see who the agent is, who they're thanking, mostly if they're good agents, and make your wish list. Like not so much worrying about what their wish list is.
I love that. Lola, maybe you can speak first on this one. CJ asks in the chat, can you define diverse voices? So DV Pit is diverse voices pitching. Lola, what qualifies as a quote unquote diverse voice?
I think it's a voice that we don't see represented a lot, right? So it could be anything from, you know, a different gender kind of book, or, you know, it could be Black, people of color, it could be, religion, anything that's not centered on whiteness, for the most part. And so it's giving people opportunities to get their work, in front of publishers, in front of agents, where, and let me, because I know Stephanie mentioned the publication in my book, over 70 rejections from publishers. And this is why places like Dave Pitt is really important, because that book, before we got our amazing publisher, the first one, Source Books. Now we are 4 publishers, but before we got the first one, many of the publishers were rejecting my book because they felt like their audiences couldn't connect. And their audiences were primarily, like mostly white women. And we kept telling them, but why? Because you can connect with vampires and werewolves and other things with ease. Why? And so that's why Dave Pitt is important. Then agents can go there and look at lots of different stories, different ideas, and opening up that space, to the audiences. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So helpful. Thank you for that. Anne has a question in the chat. I wonder, Melanie, if you can help us with this or take the lead on this. Any tips for finding agents who represent novels and screenplays, and saying that she wrote the screenplays first?
And Melanie, you've written both plays and books. Is there any overlap?
Well, actually, I've never tried to sell one of my scripts, to be honest. I just write them, I perform them, or I mean, if it's a one-person show, I produce other people to perform them, and sometimes people buy them and license them for them to do. So I don't actually know. I do know that the agent I have now mentions that she has a sub-agent who does handle scripts. So there are people who do it. I don't know. Sorry.
Does either one of you have an opinion on this, Hanana or Lola? I know I have an opinion on it.
You mean about representing screenplays? Yeah, because I think that there are some, I don't know if that's going to be a literary agent or a screen or TV agent, so you might have to look for, sometimes it's the agent that sells your book is usually not the same agent that sells it for screen adaptations or stage adaptations. So you may want to look for, they may call themselves film or TV agents. That's the one you need to go to for your screenplays, because those are the ones that might get it, on the screen or get it on stage. If that answers that question, yeah.
Yeah. And generally an agent who is good enough at selling novels to sell your novels has a depth of experience in that. And they don't have a depth of experience in being good enough at selling screenplays to sell your screenplays. Yes. An agent who reps your novels, though, probably has connections with another agent whose job it is to sell screenplays. Steve has a great question, and I want to kind of expand this outward. Steve asks, have you considered self-publishing or self-published in the past, which Lola, you have done? Melanie, yes. You have produced your plays yourself rather than putting them through an agent. Hanana, you have worked with a small press and are now having an agent pitch your work to larger presses. Are you happy with the trade-offs, the lack of control over your own work with an agent? Hanana, will you start us off?
Absolutely. I am not only happy, I am delighted. I hate the business of being a writer. I just want to go off into a mountain somewhere, sit, look at water and air and think about things and write about things. So my agent is, he's one of those who actually I chose because he talked about a vision for our future together, like the rest of our lives, hopefully. So he has a plan. When I discuss ideas with him, he wants me to send him everything. He is just very much a partner in, from now on, hopefully helping develop my writing career. And I needed somebody like that because I want to control just my creative process and let him tell me what to do in the rest of the aspect. So I think if I was having to manage everything that goes along with self-publishing or publishing, like even with my smaller press, they've actually done a fantastic job with publicity, but I am having to, sometimes call and book readings and that kind of thing. And that would just, he just takes everything off my table, which is amazing. So.
Lola or Melanie?
Yes. No, I can jump in because my first book was self-published, Do You Not? And the amount of energy that goes into self-publishing and marketing your own book is tremendous. Now, the reason why I may not self-publish again is because when I said self-published Do Not, a couple years later, a publisher in Australia published a book with the same name with a very similar cover. And it was clear that they poached my idea, my book cover. But because mine was self-published and kind of like a little one-woman shop, you know, they could get away with it. So I got really angry and I actually called them out on Twitter about it. So that was what stopped me from self-publishing my third book, In Every Mirror She's Black. Because if I had self-published and somebody had stolen the idea or poached it, I would have felt devastated. So I said, you know what? After our 50th rejection, we're going to keep going until we find the right publisher, because they have the muscle to get that book more visible because of what happened when I self-published and I saw another publisher poach kind of my creative idea, and it was self-published, so there was not much I could do. So.
Melanie, how about you?
Now this brings up an interesting point, because for the book I have coming out now, I am working with the agent that I no longer have. So, I mean, she's my agent for this book and that's all, but she still goes to bat for me. I mean, the press that that is publishing the book, Lions Press, they're good, but there have been battles. I think there are always battles. You know, the cover art wasn't quite well done enough for me, and the editing, I had to go back, because I'm a professional editor, I had to go back and re-edit it myself after they added some typos that I honestly just think were autocorrect things. But, you know, I have had to be on top of a lot of things. My agent has backed me up, you know, so I do mostly communicate directly with the publisher, but there have been times when I've just needed to say, like, I needed someone to say, look, it's in the contract that I do get approval of the cover, you know, so things like that. I have really appreciated someone going to bat for me. You know, at one point, one of the second half of the advance was a little late. She got on that. So as a freelancer, and Allison, I'm sure you know this, we spend a lot of time battling for things that we're naturally owed, like money for performances or contracts or like all those things. And to not have to do that, to be able to, because like even with the traditional publisher, we still need to do a lot of our own promotion, and that's okay. But to be able to, when a battle gets to be a little just not worth the time, to be able to give it over to somebody else and, you know, like that, let them make the point. It's such a luxury. Like, oh my God, it's so nice. So yes.
I love that so much. I love that so much. And having someone else take over that battle for you. So here is a question from the chat from Maria. And I'm wondering, was this a battle for you? And was this something that made or broke anything? Or what would your advice be? Maria asks, any advice on properly categorizing genre, right? There's some confusion and similar, often overlapping descriptions of upmarket fiction, women's fiction, book club fiction, literary, commercial, etc. What are your thoughts? Lola?
I can start, because that was one of the problems we also had with my book, In Every Mirror She's Black. It spans genres, and so it couldn't be classified. And that's actually what I want to advise people to actually do, is don't think about writing for a genre, just write what you want to write, because the industry has to catch up with good stories, whether they fit a bucket or not. And that's why I'm super grateful that we really did stick to our grounds, because some publishers wanted me to switch and take things out, and we said no. And so this book spans genres, and it's doing well now because it's an interesting story that reflects life. Life spans genres.
The industry.
One day it's romance, the next day it's thriller. It's, you know, and so yeah.
Yeah, the industry has to catch up.
I say, you know.
Sorry, Lola, you keep cutting in and out. You keep cutting in and out, and I think you're done talking that I talk over you. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that. With it's my connection or yours cutting in or out. But I love that Lola just said the industry has to catch up with good stories. Okay. I think this has always been the way. Susan Shapiro always mentions in writers groups that someone from Random House or a Big Five told her people like to act like publishing is a business, but it's actually a casino. Right. Mm. And I was interviewing Candace Bushnell last summer, and she said to me, Sex and the City came out at the same time as Bridget Jones's Diary. And then every publisher said, the thing that sells is called chicklet. And then they just brought in that's all anybody wanted to buy for a few years because they thought that was going to sell. So yeah, publishing is really reactionary in what they think is going to be the next thing that sells. Hanana or Melanie, on words on genre?
I'm actually not I mean, I know there's these categories that exist out in the publishing world, and at some level we have to contend with them. My thing is, this is why I have an agent. So I don't have to think about where I know my work fits in pretty deep into the literary world. It's just, it's a lot of death and dying and pretentiousness. So I feel like it kind of fits in very solidly. But I do feel like there's sometimes, we have to contend with, like, especially when you're looking for agents too, a lot of them will say, these are the markets we look at. And I actually think it's kind of okay to not know everything. We're writers at the end of the day. We're not business people. We're not publishers. We're not editors. You're approaching a new market kind of as an outsider. So I think it's also okay. I thought it was okay for me to express to my agents, this is kind of who inspires me, not that this is exactly where my work fits in. Because the one agent I did say this is where my work fits in, he said, well, I don't really see that. And I was like, aha, okay. So I actually don't, I'm just kind of taking shots in the dark here. So if I found it better to phrase it in a way that these are the genres, or these are the artists, or these are the writers that I see myself closer to, or am inspired by, or I find some kinship with. And so I think wording it that way leaves room for them to interpret it how they want to interpret it, because they're the ones who are kind of thinking about bookshelves and where you're going to be at Barnes and Noble, and not, in your home, like just writing.
I feel like I have sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Melanie. You go.
I feel like I have a less noble approach. I wrote the first book to make money. Like, I don't know if it will, it probably won't, but I distinctly picked a genre where I thought there was a gap, because it's different if it's a memoir. It's different if it's short stories or essays. But I figured, hey, I've done the research. Here's something I could write about. I think someone will buy it. So I was very specific about, it's historic and his biography. For the bird book, it was a little different, because I thought nature, science, birds. And I've been told to add more of a memoir component to it now. So I always thought be as specific as you can in the genre, at least for nonfiction. And I'm learning that isn't necessarily true. So yeah, I guess it's an education.
We've had a couple of questions in the chat. How would I go about finding an agent for middle grade nonfiction? How would I go about finding an agent for this? How would I go about finding small presses that might be the right people to represent my book? Starting with Lola, will you each tell us, how did you make your list? How did you discover which agents you wanted to query and how?
So I actually didn't have a big list, because I was just luckily in the beginning of my querying stage when I connected with Jessica. At that time, I had also gone to the Stockholm Writers Festival, where there were some agents visiting. And so I got to meet some agents one-on-one. So that was also another way of connecting. But it was so early on that I hadn't created a long list of agents. I was just lucky to meet Jessica, because she was coming in and we met and it worked. But definitely, and I think it was Melanie that said this, looking at the writers you like and looking at the back or the books and to see who the agents are listed, that is one way to find the right people that may write in the same kind of tone or space, right? So I think, was it Melanie or who talked about making the list of, who was it? Was it Anana? I don't know.
Hanana, how did you?
It wasn't me. That's a very smart thing, though. I can't, it's not me.
Oh, okay. Somebody talked about writing a list, making a list of agents.
That was me.
Looking. Yes, sorry.
That was me.
very, very smart. I love that idea.
Hanana, how did you make your list?
So I would say my list was an unofficial sort of list, and it had been running for a long time. So if I would go to, like, for example, I went to the Sewanee Writers Conference and just over drinks, like, ran into somebody who turned out was an agent, and we had just really connected personally. So I was like, oh, okay, I don't know what she represents, but I like her personality. We joked around, we have the same vibe, got it. Her name goes on the list. So I had sort of like this unofficial list that had been going on for, I want to even say a few years. It was only in 2019 that I kind of sat down and said, okay, what are the what are the books that I'm reading, that the authors that I absolutely love? So I didn't look a lot at, I have to admit, not at like marketing, not those things, but more at things like, what are the authors, just have names, who are getting nominated for prizes, because I'm a little bit focused on, I'd like to win a little recognition. That would be nice. So I kind of started looking at that, and then I just started compiling it with no intention of actually sending things out. Just had names. Then I would read a novel and go, oh, wow, that was a great voice, or that was a really interesting take or interesting novel, similar to kind of things I want to write, even not even that I'm writing, but that I'm ambitious about writing similar to this one day. So I would note that down. And then in around the end of 2019, when I kind of finished my novel, I looked at all of those, and along with the list, so I did this Excel sheet with the name of the agents, how I knew about them, and then if I had any connections with them at all. So if I had other writer friends who knew of them, or if they were somebody's agent that I knew of, or that kind of thing. Or I followed them on Twitter and started, some of them are pretty funny and say a lot of interesting things. So I started, thanks to you, Allison, following your social media, I've followed your social media advice on social media. So I kind of was like, okay, I'm gonna kind of try to connect with them or retweet them or that kind of thing. So built a little bit of connection that way. And by the time I got to thinking about who do I want to send it to, I had two things. I think one, I had confidence in whether they say yes or no, that's not what I'm doing this for. I know how to write a professional letter. I'm just reaching out to see if there's a possibility of us working together. So that was the mindset that I went into it with. And then two, I was just kind of, I had already narrowed it down enough to where I think I queried maybe 27 agents, and I got requests from maybe, I want to say like 17. So it was, by that time, I think I had sort of narrowed it down enough that I wasn't just, carpet bombing everybody, which I feel like would have been I felt like would have been a waste of my energy. So
Melanie, how did you make your list? Melanie, you're on mute.
Not anymore. Okay. The bird was tweeting. Anyway, so the first look, I kind of played the numbers game the first time. It was pandemic. There was nothing else to do. And so so I thought, okay, I researched a bunch of agents. I looked up basically every agency. I went through every agent and I made an Excel chart. I spent 3 days making an Excel chart of anyone who liked biographies, basically just that, biographies or history. And I think I ended up querying maybe like 89 or 92 or something. And I probably heard back from about 50 of them. A lot of those were no's, but I mean, there were 50 answers. And I think I had 8 people request partials or fulls. And then I got the agent out of that. And the first agent, she basically said, someone may be interested, but also no one may be interested. And I wanted to prove her wrong. So I really just went back to that list and I looked up, I don't know, maybe 20 of the people. And I thought, first round, I'm just going to do a crapshoot, send it out to 20 people, see if anyone thinks it's good. So that's basically what I did the second time.
Amazing.
Not meticulously researched the second time at all.
But you already did the research the first time. So you were looking at it with seasoned eyes, right? Okay. And I think that sort of ties into we got a couple questions in the chat. First of all, assuming, because the three of you are so wonderful on a panel, that you're probably extroverts, and wondering, so I want to know from you, are you not? Are you extroverts or introverts? And do you have advice for people who feel very vulnerable in this situation, making these connections with people, like trying to sell yourself in your writing? I mean, I grew up in figure skating, and querying was the biggest mindfuck of my life. So a lot of things come up when you're doing something this meaningful and this uncertain. So what advice do you have for us? Hanana, can we start with you on this one?
Absolutely. I would say I'm a very introverted extrovert, as in when I'm extroverted, I'm really extroverted. And when I'm introverted, just leave me alone. um, honestly, my one big advice would be it feels overwhelming. Don't take everybody's advice for everything. Like if your work is good enough, it will find a home. And it's not, I mean, I think for a little while I felt like it was like a panicked race. Like I need to find an agent by this time, or like setting all these like deadlines that mean nothing. Ultimately, a work comes into the work when it's in the world, when it's meant to come into the world. You find the right agent at a certain point. So I think not panicking, don't panic would be my big advice. Don't panic and trust yourself that you know how to write. If you know how to write a professional letter and be a decent human being in the world and have good work, it will come together.
Lola, what do you recommend?
I'm sorry, I know my connection isn't that great, but so just let me know if it's breaking up. But I would say, what's the worst that could happen? People just ignore your email. And what's the best that could happen? You get that response. Nobody is going to be able to promote your work and care to your work as much as you. So you are going to have to be brave enough, even though you're an introvert, to take that first step if you want to share your work with the world. I always say it's like an amazing artist that keeps their work in the basement. They want people to show, but you have to take that first step. Take your work out of the basement to show, which means that rejection, you shouldn't take rejection personally. It's very difficult because creative people, we put our heart, we pour our souls into what we create. And so when we and try to approach it objectively, as with the what's the worst that could happen? They just ignore my email. But the best that could happen is you actually put yourself there and somebody will respond. So
I love that. Thank you for that. And I wrote in the chat, the worst that can happen, because when you said that at the beginning, you were like, what's the worst that can happen? And I was like, oh, bad things. And you're like, they don't reply. And I was like, oh, right. That's actually the worst thing. It's not a catastrophe, right? So thank you for that. Melanie.
I mean, I sort of approached it like a game, and I know a lot of people here have been working their whole lives for this. And I mean, I haven't, although I've always wanted to be a writer, I haven't. So, I mean, I feel like there was a little less, I guess, emotional weight to doing all of this. But I mean, all of what I do as a performer, it's all a game. You know, it's, can you get that theater to book your show? Can you say the right thing to get people to come in the door? I mean, for me, it was like, can I win this game of getting an agent? And it's, if you think about it, that's, in a way, it's, I mean, honestly, once I sent it out to a bunch of people, yeah, I got a bunch of rejections, but knowing that someone out there is reading it is kind of amazing. You know, after all that time we just spent alone in our childhood bedrooms or the equivalent, like writing that book, to know that someone, even if it's not right for them, but they're out there reading it. And a lot of the no's I got, I actually, you know, they'd write a no and I'd write kind of a funny, well, thank you, you know, try to make it funny. Thank you for reading it. We actually had these like pretty lengthy conversations with a few of the rejections. And a few of them did say, you know, if you write something else, send it to me, you know. So sometimes a rejection is still a connection if you take it well. I think a lot of people don't take them well. I think they're used to getting a lot of snark back at them. So
absolutely. So as with all Writers Bridges, we do take a 5-minute breakout room session. You do not have to go in a breakout room. Just refuse the invitation when it pops up. We'll be back in 5 minutes. And in 5 minutes, each of our panelists is going to tell us the top tip for getting an agent that they have for you, and the one thing you can do today to make your agent journey 100% easier. We're going to take 5 minutes in breakout rooms.
So I love that. The rejection can still be a connection, because my therapist always says rejection is protection. But the fact that they just they don't think they are the right match for this part of your career or, this business endeavor, this book, doesn't mean you can't still be like connected, colleagues, friends, something, moving forward. That's amazing.
I am just checking through and making sure that nobody is getting left alone in a breakout room.
Jocelyn, I love your new website. I sent you a note on your contact form. I like that movie now. Hey, Tanya, thank you for dropping the guidelines for DV Pit in the chat.
Welcome. It's hard to know how to answer that question. And since they have a list, disability counts, it's on their list. So it's better to just go.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that, because I was going to start listing things that would be, that's better.
Absolutely.
Other people left our room, so that's why I'm here.
I got swept into to the fourth breakout room, but the other two people in there were not. They had their camera off and their volume off, and I was trying to talk to them, and they were not amenable.
Glad you're back here.
Yeah, here. I was like, oh, I want to hear some top tips.
Right. There's like 5 people in the room and 3 of them left and the other one just had their screen off and their mic off. I'm like, well, there are people here.
We are here.
Yeah.
There's nobody in the room.
I'm sorry, my audio has been really bad throughout. So I'm just out in a cabin by the ocean somewhere. So that's why it's breaking up. So I'm
just out by a cabin by the ocean.
No.
Yes, no, but I was like, Lola,
it's not my cabin. It's a cabin by the ocean.
It doesn't matter if it's your cabin or someone else's cabin. Being in a cabin by the ocean is now like, I'm just going to hold that. Thank you for holding that possibility for all of us.
Let me claim it for myself.
Yeah.
No, but I'm here on assignment. That's why I'm here on a travel assignment. So that's why, but my audio keeps breaking. And so I disconnected and I'm in here and I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Wow. Oh, we're just waiting because everyone's in breakout rooms, but we didn't send. Are the other panelists in breakout rooms? Maybe, but that's why you're back in the room, Lola, because you just jumped back in.
Yeah, other panelists are in breakout rooms, and I just went through and made sure nobody was stuck alone in a breakout room. So yeah, if anybody wants to pop in with a question real quick, and Lola, when we come back from breakout, we'll have you give your top tip first, since you have a hard stop at 5 minutes.
Yes. Thank you. And my top tip, is it top tip for an agent, or what's top tip for?
It's your number one tip for a writer getting an agent. What's your number one thing you think they should do?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Lola, I was just going to say, I live in a little cabin at 9,000 feet. We're having a snowstorm.
Oh my goodness.
My connection is terrible. So
it's better than mine. That's amazing. Where are you based?
Okay, 5 hours from Denver.
Okay.
We're called Lake City. It's a little tiny Colorado town up in the Rocky Mountains, also known as the San Juan Mountains. Okay. About 300 of us live here full time. But in the summertime, especially since COVID, thousands and thousands of people are coming. And the mountain doesn't get bigger. It's very off-putting.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah. Wow, incredible.
Poor Locust,
awesome.
right?
I love your sharing today. Ashleigh and Allison, you guys get the greatest people.
Thank you.
And you give this away. You're so generous. I try to share that in my writing communities, how you have to give stuff away. You have to be generous. You guys and Jane are I have goosebumps. You're the best. I don't ever ask the 3 of you guys questions that I don't get a response. God bless.
Really glad to hear that. All right. I'm going to hit the close all rooms button. And when we come back, we are going to have our 3 top tips. And then I am going to share with you guys the number 1 thing you can do today to make the whole thing easier. Awesome. Oh, yay. Cabin at the ocean. I would like to be in a cabin at the ocean. That would be awesome.
Now, maybe we need to have a writer's bridge, like retreat session.
Yes.
You and I to brainstorm upcoming episodes. Yeah.
I like this idea. I like this idea a lot. I like this idea a whole lot. All right. So people are going to start coming back in from breakout rooms any minute now. Tanya, it's so good to see you. You are just such a quality human being.
Love Tanya so much.
Yeah, very, very much.
Bless you for that.
All righty, in they come. Ashleigh, you put some sort of setting, I think, on our talking that made it easy to see all our panelists at once.
I did. I'm going to do that. I'm going to pin.
You are the best.
Just like, thanks.
Okay. Awesome sauce. Welcome back, everybody, from Breakout. Ashleigh is taking a quick moment to pin our 3 beautiful guest speakers to the top again. We're going to hear the top tips from each of our panelists. We also want to invite you to forward the replay of this episode to a friend when you get the replay link tomorrow. Please do invite other writers to join us. Everyone is welcome. We also want to say, too, join us the next episode for Selling Your Book Beyond Social Media. Eileen Weintraub is going to be filling us in on all of her strategies to sell books in real life and online without ever dancing on TikTok. And I'm pretty sure that Ashleigh is going to share with you her way to get your book into physical bookstores, the number 1 most successful way to do that. Lola, you are a beautiful writer. You are a beautiful artist. People should buy your book and they should review it online. Tell us, what is your top tip for getting an agent?
Thank you. And thank you all for having me as well. My top tip is don't be afraid to ask for an introduction. So if you have a friend that is represented by an agent that you're really interested in, or if there's someone you know within your network that you know each other well, do not be afraid to say, you know what, can you please introduce me to your agent? Send an email on my behalf. I did that recently with my agent and somebody I really respect and is a friend, and my agent signed her up because our work aligned as well. So don't be afraid to ask for an introduction.
Fantastic. Melanie, what is your top tip for us for getting an agent?
You're muted, Melanie.
Melanie?
I'm here. I would say just don't take things personally. I mean, they're not trying to stop you from being published. I guess the awareness is they want to publish good books. You want your good book to be published. It is partly the numbers game and partly finding a match. So just, I guess, don't see them as these impassable gatekeepers. They're people too. And often, and they are looking for a personal connection. So try to make that connection. Again, even if they say no, you never know where a good connection can lead.
Beautiful. Hanana, what is your top tip for getting an agent for our writers today?
My top tip would be to remember that if you didn't have the work, they wouldn't have a job. So your work matters. It is the thing that they want. They want you as much as you want them, maybe even more. So have good work and then go to them with confidence, because that translates into, I think that everybody likes to see that somebody who's standing behind their work and confidently presenting themselves.
Exactly. And I know there's more questions pouring into the chat. Our panelists cannot necessarily stay, but Ashleigh and I can take another 10 minutes and answer questions. I want to leave you all with the one thing you can do today that will make your entire journey as an author easier, and that is to picture your own success. What does it look like to you? Is it important to have your book in a physical bookstore or have it easy to find online? Does having a beautiful design matter to you? Do you care how many books you actually sell? sell? Do you want to make money, not actively lose money, or invest money so that your book is part of a larger platform? Get as specific as you can, because for some publishing paths, you need an agent on your team to get you the best possible opportunities. For other paths, you'll need to educate yourself so that you are in the strongest possible place to go indie or small press. No matter what success looks like to you, you get to decide what that dream looks like. And being specific and detailed about your dream is what's going to let you take those steps to make it happen. Please unmute yourselves for a glorious goodbye. Thank you all so much for hanging out today with us. We're so glad you came to the Writers Bridge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies, great session.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Happy
Thank
querying,
you.
everybody.
Happy querying.
Thank
Happy
you.
querying. So glad
for
y'all
being
are
here,
here
panelists.
today. Thank you, panelists, for sharing your time with us so generously. We really appreciate it. And we will make sure that the links to your books go out in the replay email as well, so that people can find your books. Yay.
Thank you so much. It's so good to see everybody. And thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Ashleigh and Allison, for your help with my agent search.
Yay.
And the terrible. Yeah.
Your words are beautiful and they should be in the world.
Thank you, Hanana.
So welcome. Besides, I still need to know what happened to the goldfish at the office.
Don't we all?
Don't we all? For those of you who are sticking around, do you have any remaining questions that you would like to ask? And we will do our best to answer them.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Hey,
Brian.
I'm still sort of up in the air whether I should be querying agents who do nonfiction memoir or nonfiction LGBTQIA+. And it seems to me like a crapshoot. How am I going to find that the person that I belong with? Anyway, I'm still sort of on the fence there.
Hanana, what do you think?
I'm sorry. I was responding to a message and I missed half of that question.
Oh, never mind. Ashleigh looked like she had an answer.
I'll jump
Ashleigh,
in,
you
and
go.
then Hanana, you'll get the gist. So Brian's wondering if he should be querying agents who are specifically asking for memoir, specifically represent memoir, or LGBTQIA+. I think, Brian, if you are looking at authors you love and seeing who they are represented by, that is going to be your main indicator. This is one of the reasons I will never give up my Publishers Marketplace subscription. I'm far too snoopy. And I like to know who represents who. So then I can follow all these people on social media and see who's actually friends with who, like who runs in which circles. And that really gives me an idea that even lets me know about editors who are authors, who's now a friend of mine. Like, yeah, it gives an idea because it might be someone who you don't expect.
True.
Yeah.
True. For me, it was a little bit like all of my comp authors, their agents are close to querying. And I'm like, but yes, and they're the people I would want to have represent me, but yes.
And I would suggest, sorry, go ahead, Ashleigh.
Brian, okay, your comp authors, if their agents are close to querying, then I want to know, who are your comp authors blurbing right now? Because those are like the next up and coming authors, and their agents may have more room on their list to take on new authors. So I would Google their names. I would follow those authors. Try to even find like other writers who are sharing like the blurb from, your comp author, and then just see then in that expanded circle. So you find.
Okay.
And
okay.
If I can now that I've
Please.
caught up with the conversation. So I was going to say the blurb thing as well. And then one of the things people really shy away from is like newer agents. And a lot of time newer agents who work under more experienced agents can be a great place because they will spend a lot of time working with your work. So they may be close, but they may have newer agents up and coming in their agency who would be much more open to taking on your work.
Great.
That's a
Thank you.
great strategy.
Oh, yeah. I'm even
Diana? Sorry, go ahead, Ashleigh.
actively looking at, okay, this is my dream agent. My dream agent was Jennifer Rudolph Walsh. She's like Brene Brown, James Patterson, Oprah's agent. Been closed to queries for a while. Okay. And then I was like, all right, who is she a mentor to? Margaret Riley King. Who is Margaret Riley King a mentor to? Like just looking at sort of figuring out the hierarchy to figure out who is in that stream of influence, who may have wider bandwidth.
Diana, what's your question?
Well, thank you. And by the way, that was awesome. Thank you so much for teaching us that piece of it. I am just curious. I'm getting ready to submit right now query letters. I've written my book is ready. It's been revised 20 times and it's like, yes, it's time. So how many agents can you feel good about hitting at the same time with the query letter? I mean, like, and obviously you want to individualize each query letter, but what's a good amount? Or you don't have to wait, do you? Like,
I have an answer for that actually. So like I said, I played the numbers game, but I mean, I sent them out probably 10 a day to maybe 15 a day, because one day I noticed I had a typo in the query letter. And, yes, it was my name. My name was wrong. I wrote mermaid instead of Melanie because my stupid computer autocorrects. But anyway, the point is I only look like an idiot to 15 people. And, I didn't notice that until someone wrote me an answer. So sometimes something won't come through, or you'll notice that another time I had track changes on, I'd forgotten to take it off in my full manuscript. And, I sent it out to 2 people, and had I sent it out to everyone who had asked for it, I would have had to go to 8 people and be like, hi, I'm an idiot. So it doesn't hurt to sort of not send to like 70 in one day, because if you make a stupid mistake, I don't know. It's just that's what I think.
I also advise, sorry, go ahead, Hanana.
No, I was just going to say, I kind of did a stagger too, which I did about 10 to 15 a week, not a day. And I just kind of did my 10, my top favorites who I wanted. And then the next week I do like the second tier or the third tier. So it's funny because I feel like I sort of started thinking them not as like they're tiering me, but I'm like, okay, here's my top tier agents. Here are my second tier, third tier, fourth tier. And then as the responses started coming, because also the top tier usually take longer. Like my top tier were ones I was expecting to come back like later. So I got a lot of responses sort of at the same time, which was good because then it made me feel like I had all the options.
I also recommend sending out your queries in waves, like send out 10, wait a week, send 10 more. Because if your first round of queries gets only rejections, like only form rejections, there's something wrong with the query. If your first rejection if your first queries get requests for pages, but then nobody asks to see the full manuscript, something's wrong with the pages, and so you can kind of weed out, like, is this query the right query? Is it working right now? That said, I have also heard of people who wide blasted 100 agents at once because they felt like their book was timely and they really needed somebody to move quickly. But you've got to be pretty confident that your book is in fact both excellent and timely. The other thing that's really helpful is if you send them out 10 at a time, eventually someone will probably make an offer. And when that happens, you get to email all of the agents who have not actively said no, or who are not outside the, if we don't get back to you in this many days, it's a no window. You get to email them all with, I have received an offer of representation. I'm still interested in working with you. Will you let me know if you have time to take a look at my query in the next, whatever time span? And that very often prompts agents to get around to reading your requested full that they have had for 6 months now and not talked to you. So that can be really helpful. Hanana, you look like you have something to add there.
No, I was going to say, because that's exactly right. Because that's exactly how I got my agent. He was on a second list, I think. And he had only had my manuscript for maybe 2 weeks when I got an offer from somebody else, who, by the way, was a junior agent at a really good agency, but a more junior agent. And I was like, aha, okay. So I used that to nudge Kent, who then was like, yeah, I will absolutely read it today. And then he did read it today. So it kind of did help propel him into action.
Yeah. Strategy.
So good, so good. And the one thing I would add to that, so I did like 5 agents at a time till I got to 20. And I actually got a full offer from Margaret Riley King, that agent at WME. She's Glennon Doyle's agent, but nothing else, crickets from everybody else. And that was the point I realized my query letter actually sucked pretty badly. So I paid for query letter help. So I would say, Diane, I'm not sure if you've had anyone look at your query letter, but in addition to cleaning up that manuscript, really getting it into great shape, paying someone to look at your query letter, I think, is a really good use of resources.
Or even just have your friends who have read your manuscript read your query letter. Because when I was unsuccessfully querying a young adult novel a couple of years ago, Hanana was one of the people sitting with me at the table when I said to my 2 writing buddies, hey, I don't know what's wrong with my query letter. And they had both read the book and they were like, that doesn't sound like your book at all. Your book isn't about topic A that you focus on. Your book is much more about this other, much more marketable topic right now. And I hadn't even seen it. I was too close to the project to see that the query did not really represent the manuscript.
And that's what I paid. Someone just asked here, who did Ashleigh pay to polish the query letter? I got Jane Friedman before she closed individual coaching.
I offer that service.
And Allison offers that service. And what Jane told me was my query didn't sound like my pages or my synopsis at all. So when you're trying to sell your book, you may do a very, very, very poor job of telling people what your book's about. It's like this writer's like blindness. It's hard. So having someone to help out with that really helps.
Any other questions as we wrap up today?
Thank you so much. That was awesome. Awesome material. Thanks, you guys.
So glad it's helpful.
Yeah.
I have one, Allison.
Yeah, Jo Beth.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to be meeting with an agent who has had some interest in my memoir, and I'm like trying to figure out, what do I ask him? You know, what are the things that I really need to grill him about, you know, to make sure he's the right one for me.
Melanie.
I definitely, because I did the wrong thing here. So number one, talk about your future work. Talk about where you see your career going, ideally, and see what the response is to that. But also, and I did not mention this before, ask what he does if your book does not sell upon initial pitch. Because that was a huge thing. Like my first agent, there was no backup plan. She was basically like, well, you should write another book, but I hate all your ideas. Like it was pretty much that. So, but it was, you know, and I said, well, what about Canadian publishers? Because Deanna Durbin's from Canada. And she's like, well, I have no relationships with any of those, which is fair. But I mean, we had never had that conversation. You know, what if it wasn't wildly successful with the first round of pitches? And in the end, she did her research and she did a second round and it sold. But we never had that discussion. And I think I wanted to impress her more than I wanted to find out if she was the right fit for me. So have that discussion.
I think I would also ask if your agent is an editor at all. Like my agent is an editing agent, and they do look at my work in detail and work it through before we send it forward. So are they editing? What's their strategy for submission? Are they going to submit to like just big presses or small presses as well? I
love my agent dearly, but she did not read my book. She only read the proposal. And I've heard that from other people writing nonfiction, like specifically too, my book was not a beautiful literary novel. My book was craft-based nonfiction. So you really did get the gist from the proposal, but it was very challenging. And it may have been one of the reasons why my book was published without chapter number 9. It goes from 8 to 10 and nobody caught it.
I'm sorry, Allison, I didn't catch that either.
Melanie was the copy editor.
I didn't totally miss that.
Nobody caught it. None of us caught it. Yeah.
Also, I also just want to say, wait, I had something clever, but now I forget it. Yeah, no, I have no idea. Never mind.
Yeah. And asking whether your agent is an editorial agent is a really good thing to know, because you want to know, do they think the book is done? Or what do they envision revising in the book? Do they have a plan for what they think you need to improve? Do they think the book is ready to go out? You know, do they have ideas for how you would position yourself in terms of building platform or connecting with your audience before publication? And Jo Beth, if you are in the binders full of binders seeking literary agents, I think somebody put a list of questions in there, and that might be useful to you. Brian, let me know if you need that list of questions emailed to you. Cool. Yeah. All right.
Right.
Well, I think we're near the end of our time. Thank you, Hanana and Melanie, for so graciously giving the rest of your time. We really appreciate it. We're so glad you all could come. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
See you later.
CJ,
Thank you,
message
everyone.
me on
Thank you
Facebook
so
and I'll
much.
get you in there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
I love you, Melanie. You're
I love
awesome.
you. Chapter 9. Sorry.
None of us found it. The page designer didn't find it. The publisher didn't find it.
It's
Nobody.
this, right? It's hard. It's hard to see things that you're so close to.
Yeah.
It's a number.
Yeah.
All right.
All
Bye,
righty.
everyone. Thanks for being here.